the world has known that soft drinks are bad, and it turns out that it's that combination of fructose and glucose that are doing it. Now, my research tried to distinguish between fructose and glucose and what was actually the bad guy. And the truth is, both are bad guys. When you eat fructose, it's bad from the very first mouthful. If you take a large amount of fructose, it's different from all other calories that does a trick to the body. In our cells, we have energy. We run on energy. The energy is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, if you want to know. But basically, we run on energy, and we eat calories to make that energy. And that energy can either be active energy, which is the ATP, or it can be a stored energy, which goes into fat. And the great thing about fat, there is a good thing about fat, is if you don't have any food around, the fat can be broken down to calories. And so animals get fat to protect themselves when there's no food around, like the hibernating bear and things like that. So fat can be good as a stored energy. But when you eat fructose, it tries to take the calories we eat and put it into the stored energy, not into the active energy. And when you eat glucose, it does the reverse. It tries to make active energy and then secondarily stored energy. And so they work slightly differently. Fructose actually actively lowers the ATP in the cell through effects on the energy factories. It suppresses the energy factories, which are called mitochondria. And by doing that, it drops the ATP levels. And at the same time, it blocks the fat from being broken down to replace that energy. So what happens is when you eat a lot of fructose, you set your intracellular, or you set your energy in your cells to a lower level than normal. And that is the trigger to tell the body and say, hey, I'm running on low power. It's low power mode. My battery's going to run out. I need to recharge my phone. In this case, I need to eat more. I need to bring in more calories, and I need to do this to bring my energy levels up. But the truth is, your total energy isn't low, because although the ATP is low, the stored energy is high, right? So the calories, it sort of tricks the body into thinking that you're in a low energy state, even though you have fat that can provide that energy. So the way fructose works is it lowers the ATP only by 20 or 30%. Sometimes a little bit more if you take a big slug. It's kind of like a dimmer switch. You take a little bit, it may not lower it at all. So if you sipped a Coke and just drank a tiny bit of fructose per hour, you may not drop that ATP level. But if you take a big slug of it, boom, you're going to knock it down. When that ATP goes down, the body senses it as a low energy. If it goes down really low, you activate a different process, okay? If it goes down really low where you think the organism thinks it's going to die, it will start breaking down muscle and all these things to find whatever energy it can, because it's like desperate. But if you bring the energy down 20 or 30%, it's kind of like saying, hey, it's time to go get some gas. It's time to go eat a little bit more. And what it does is it stimulates hunger. It stimulates craving. It stimulates food intake. It stimulates foraging. So you actually become active even though your energy's low, but only while you're looking for the food. It's like a foraging response. But as soon as you quit, your resting energy metabolism actually drops because you're in a low ATP state. When we give it to our little mice, the mice will be, when they're not actively trying to get food, they actually huddle. They actually go into kind of like almost like torpor, like a low energy state. So anyway, when you eat fructose, it does all these things to make you hungry and eat more. And at the same time, it's also working in your body. It's making you insulin resistant. So fructose is what causes insulin resistance. And that means that your tissues become less sensitive to insulin. So you're getting less energy into the muscle, which isn't good, right? And at the same time, the glucose levels are going up in the blood. Now, the glucose levels turn out that when they go up in the blood, guess what happens? You make fructose from the glucose, and the glucose also stimulates insulin. So you're insulin resistant, insulin levels are going up from the rise in the glucose and also from the glucose you're drinking in the soft drink. So it's a double whammy, right? The insulin resistance make the glucose goes up, but the glucose levels are going up as well from the soft drink. And then that stimulates insulin, which in the setting of insulin resistance is not going to do you good. It's going to increase fat. And the high glucose gets converted to fructose. So fructose is a carb, right? And glucose can make fructose. And fructose can be used to make glucose. They can go both ways in the body. But when the glucose levels are high, we have shown, and now it's been shown in many other situations, that the glucose starts getting converted to fructose. I love levels, by the way, and I have a CGM, and I always want to know what to avoid foods that raise my glucose. Not only because I don't want to stimulate insulin, but because when the glucose goes up, it gets converted to fructose. And that's been shown like in the brain, in the Alzheimer's patients, they have high fructose levels in the brain. And it's been shown that when blood glucose goes up, guess what happens? You start making fructose in the brain. So both are important. When you drink a soft drink, the fructose is the evil guy that lowers the energy, sets the stage. And then the glucose is actually driving the insulin response, which you don't want in this setting. And at the same time, it's also being converted to fructose. So both sugars are bad. But in general, glucose, when it doesn't get converted to fructose, is there to make instant energy. And fructose was really designed to make stored energy. If you're on your keto diet, you can eat a lot of fat. You're going to control your weight. You're not going to be hungry. And so you're not going to really gain weight, even though you're on a super high fat diet, because you need the carbs to make you hungry to gain the weight from the fat. Even having said that, the carbs themselves with fructose, even on a low fat diet, will still make you diabetic. It will still give you fatty liver. It will still increase your body fat, even if your weight gain doesn't go up. So the weight gain is tied to the high fat diet, but becoming fat inside or diabetic inside or get fatty liver inside or develop hypertension, that is driven by this fructose pathway independently of calories.